My fiance called me for lunch and said, Amelia, I'm sorry. We can't be together anymore. I've just been promoted as the new district manager of a big production company in the city. You'll be a downgrade to my new life, and I can't disappoint my parents. Before I could even process the words, before I could speak, he blocked me and just walked away, leaving me stunned, heartbroken, and furious. Weeks later, at the grand unveiling, when all the district managers were being introduced, I got on the stage and made an announcement that ended his career. Have you ever been betrayed when you least expect it? Someone you've always sacrificed and doing everything for. Join me to see how I got my justice also in the most unexpected way. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment what time in your time zone you're listening. I got a call from Logan inviting me for lunch out of nowhere. It was an ordinary Wednesday afternoon, and I had no idea that my world was about to be shattered. I'd spent the morning getting ready, feeling hopeful about what the day might bring, so the sudden invite got me anxious and was thinking about all the positive things it might be. Of course, yes, because it's a healthy relationship and we are on good terms. But as soon as I saw Logan walk into the cafe, I could tell something was off. His usual smile was replaced with a tight, almost nervous expression, like he was carrying a weight that he couldn't hide. Hey, Amelia, he said, sliding into the chair across from me. He barely looked me in the eyes, and I could feel the tension in the air. Hey, babe, what's going on? You seem a little off today, I asked, trying to lighten the mood. I had no idea that his words were about to turn everything upside down. He took a deep breath before finally speaking, and when he did, it felt like the ground beneath me was slipping away. Amelia, I think we need to talk, he said, his voice so serious. I've been thinking a lot about us lately, and I'm sorry, but we can't be together anymore. My heart sank. What? What do you mean? I stammered, my voice cracking. I couldn't understand what he was saying. Logan and I had been together for so long, had everything planned ahead working for us. I support his career like nothing else. He leaned back in his chair and sighed, as if gathering the courage to finish. I've just been offered the position of district manager for a new production company in the city, and, well, things are changing. You see, with my new role, I can't afford to be tied down to someone like you. You're a downgrade to my lifestyle now. You don't fit the image I need to project. I can't disappoint my parents, you know? The words hit me like a slap in the face. I stared at him, unable to process what he was saying. Even if this is a joke, it's an expensive one. The man I thought I was going to spend my life with was telling me that he no longer wanted me. And not just that, I was now the problem in his life, the one that doesn't fit into the new lifestyle ahead of him. It was too much to handle. You're joking, right? I whispered, still hoping this was all some sick joke. But Logan didn't laugh. He didn't try to comfort me. Instead, he just shook his head and sighed. I've already made my decision, Amelia. I'm moving on. It's for the best, for both of us. I felt a cold rush of air sweep over me. My hands trembled as I reached for my coffee, but I couldn't bring myself to take a sip. My stomach felt like it had been twisted into knots. All I could do was sit there, staring at him as he talked about his new life, his new future, how the new district manager position will demand some aesthetics in his lifestyle, and I don't just fit into that all of a sudden, someone I have served and sacrificed for all this while. Then, just as easily as he dropped the bomb, he stood up. I've got to go. The appointment and formalities for the new role is later today, he said, his voice devoid of any real emotion. I'll block your number now. I don't think we need to talk anymore. I watched him turn away from me like it was nothing, just like that. He left me there, sitting at the table, abandoned and confused. His words echoed in my ears, a downgrade, not fitting his lifestyle, a disappointment to his parents. I felt like I was suffocating, but I couldn't bring myself to move. The door slammed shut behind him, and I sat there for what felt like an eternity. The reality of what had just happened slowly sunk in, and it wasn't just the fact that he was leaving me. It was the way he had treated me, the manner, the approach, as if I didn't matter at all. I had always been there for him, supporting him, cheering him on, sacrificing my own dreams for his. And now he was telling me I wasn't good enough. I had been blindsided, and I wasn't sure who I was anymore. But in that moment, something clicked in me. I wasn't going to let him walk away like this. I wasn't going to sit here broken and defeated. I stood up, feeling the weight of my decision building inside me. This wasn't the end of me. No, it was just the beginning. As the cafe's door swung open and closed behind me, I made up my mind. I would make him regret this. The world had underestimated me for far too long, but that was about to change. I pulled my phone out of my bag and stared at it for a moment. I had a message to send, and when I did, Logan would realize just how much he'd messed up. But first, I needed to make sure I was ready for what was coming. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about showing the world who I really was. It just can't stop ringing in my head. How could Logan do this to me? After everything we had been through, after all the sacrifices I made for him, how could he just throw me away like I didn't matter? His words replayed in my mind over and over. You're a downgrade to my lifestyle. I clenched my fists, trying to push back the overwhelming emotion threatening to spill over. There were so many thoughts racing through my mind: hurt, confusion, disbelief. But amidst all the pain, something else flickered inside me: determination. At that point, you have no choice than to reflect on your life and retaliate. I just unlocked that. As I walked the familiar streets down to my apartment, I forced myself to focus on the next steps. I didn't have time for self-pity. Logan had made his choice, and now I had to make mine. I had worked too hard to let his betrayal define me. The walk back to my apartment felt like it took forever. The city that once felt vibrant now seemed gray and hollow. It was as if the whole world was going on, but I was stuck in this moment, still in shock, still processing what had just happened. Heartbreak is really a bad thing, but maybe because this is more of a betrayal from a partner I least expect. But of course, it is better for it to surface now than happening after marriage. I reached my apartment, closed the door behind me, and sank down onto the couch. My thoughts raced, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to let Logan's cruelty destroy me. He thought he could walk away, thinking I'd just fall apart. But what he didn't know was that this was only going to make me stronger. I was done being the second choice, done being the person who worked behind the scenes while he took all the glory. It was time for me to stand tall. As I was trying to regain my composure, my phone buzzed. It was a call from my boss, the one I have worked with his production companies for 3 years now, which makes me one of the most experienced. And his company just shortlisted Logan as a district manager, out of nowhere, which makes me now unfit for him. I wiped my face quickly, hoping the shakiness in my voice wouldn't show. "Hello, sir," I answered, forcing myself to sound calm. "Amelia," my boss said, his voice sharp with excitement, "I have some great news. You've been chosen for the regional manager position for the entire country." I froze. My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, I thought I might have misheard him. "What? What position?" "Regional manager. We're offering you the position. You'll be overseeing the entire country with complete control over approvals for all district managers." The world around me seemed to blur for a moment. This was the moment I had been working toward for years, the recognition I had deserved all along, just an upgrade to my coordinator role. And now, I get one way more than that. I forced myself to stay calm, even though my mind was reeling. Regional manager. The title sounded surreal, but what really caught my attention was the rest of what he said. The position comes with a huge salary, which is 10 times more than what a distinct manager is getting. Logan's potential salary that suddenly made his ego skyrocket. I will be earning 10 times more. I couldn't help but smile. 10 times more than Logan. That was all the proof I needed that I had outgrown him. This wasn't just about money. It was about respect, power, and everything he had taken for granted. And now the tables had turned in the most unexpected way. I would be the one to decide his fate, the one who held the power to approve or reject his appointment. His smugness, his arrogance, thinking he could just discard me without a second thought, it was all about to come crashing down. "Amelia, are you still with me?" My boss asked, pulling me out of my thoughts. "Yeah, I'm here," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. I accept." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, followed by a satisfied chuckle from my boss. "Good. We'll send over the details and you'll officially start next week. Congratulations, Amelia. Thank you, I said, a small smile forming on my lips. I won't disappoint you. I hung up the phone, the weight of the news settling in. I had just stepped into a new chapter of my life, one where I wasn't going to be anyone's second choice. And Logan, he was about to learn what it meant to lose someone like me. But I wasn't going to act hastily. No, I needed to take my time. I needed Logan to believe he was still on top, that he was still the one in control of his new promotion. I wanted him to feel like he had won, to bask in his false sense of superiority while I quietly set my plan in motion. This wasn't going to be some quick act of revenge. It would be slow, calculated, and deeply satisfying. He had humiliated me, dismissed me like I was nothing, but now I had the power to turn the tables completely. As I sat back on the couch, the reality of it all sinking in, I couldn't help but think of how ironic it all was. Logan thought he could leave me behind, that he could move on to bigger and better things without me. But what he didn't know was that I was the one who would hold the power to make or break him. He had no idea what was coming. I leaned back and closed my eyes, the weight of everything finally catching up to me. The sense of empowerment was overwhelming. I had worked so hard to get here, and I wasn't going to let anyone, especially Logan, take that away from me. The anger I felt toward him was real, but there was also something else, vindication. It wasn't just about getting back at him. It was about taking control of my life and standing in my own power. I was no longer just the girl in the background, the one who supported him while he took the spotlight. Now I was the one who would shine. I couldn't wait to see the look on his face when he found out who had the real power. The thought alone sent a shiver down my spine. But there was one thing I knew for sure. This was just the beginning. As I looked out the window at the city below, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation building inside me. The calm before the storm. Logan's world was about to collapse, and I would be the one to make it happen. Weeks had passed since the day Logan had walked out of my life with a cold, heartless dismissal. I'd spent every minute since then silently watching him, carefully observing his every move. He had no idea what was coming for him. It felt strange to see him vibe through life like he had won some grand victory, while I quietly prepared my own. Logan was basking in celebration of his new role, acting like he was untouchable now that he was the new district manager, forgetting it's still shortlist. His cockiness was unmatched. He spent his days walking around the office like he owned the place, wearing that smug smile that had always grated on my nerves. What he didn't know was that he had no idea who was truly in control now, and that person, me, was quietly biding her time. My life had changed in ways I never could have imagined. I was no longer the person I had been just weeks ago. I was the regional manager now, in charge of overseeing the entire country's operations with more power and authority than Logan could ever dream of. But I kept it all under wraps, even from my own family. After all, I knew the truth. My parents still favored Juliana, my younger sister, the so-called golden child. If they knew I had achieved this role, their jealousy would erupt, and I wasn't ready to let that happen just yet. Logan thought he was living the dream, but the truth was, he was about to learn a hard lesson, and I was going to be the one to teach it to him. I spent my days establishing my position, proving myself in meetings, working my ass off. The respect from my colleagues was hard-earned, but it was all worth it. I didn't just want to be successful. I wanted to be someone who made a difference, who owned her worth. And the more I worked, the more I realized this was the life I had fought for. I no longer needed to depend on anyone. Not Logan, not my parents, not Juliana. But still, as the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending justice. The scales were about to balance, and Logan was going to be the one to feel the weight. One morning, as I sat in my new office, flipping through applications for district managers, I came across Logan's file. I almost laughed out loud. There it was, his application for the position he thought he had already secured. The same Logan who had belittled me, discarded me like I was nothing. The same Logan who thought he was on top of the world. The irony hit me hard. Logan had applied for this job under false pretenses. He had submitted fake credentials to bypass the hiring process, and this just made dealing with him super easy for me. I have the authority to deny his application before this, but it will be like an abuse of power. That is why I'm more than happy to discover his con behavior. But it shocked me more to discover he didn't do it alone. He used the insider help of his girlfriend, Juliana, my younger sister, the golden child of the family, who had made sure to smooth things over for him. That's when it hit hard, to discover a lot has been going on behind me. This wasn't just about getting back at him for how he'd treated me. It was about righting the wrongs. I had worked tirelessly to get where I was, and Logan had done nothing but manipulate his way into a position he wasn't qualified for, cooperating with my sister to use and dump me. I wasn't prepared for this. I stared at his file, my fingers tracing the edges of the papers. It wasn't just a chance for revenge anymore. It was an opportunity to show him what real power looked like. But I didn't rush. I knew that revealing my success too soon would only fuel the fire of jealousy and resentment, and that shock won't hit me like I wanted. I had to let everything play out. Logan was still in the dark, unaware that I held the fate of his career in my hands. Days turned into weeks, and I continued to climb higher in the business world. I secured major deals, expanding my influence and gaining the respect I had always deserved. Logan, meanwhile, remained blissfully unaware, continuing to believe that everything was falling into place for him just as he had hoped. His arrogant behavior only made it easier to prepare for the inevitable. He was going to crash and burn, and I would be the one to make it happen. He still walked around with that smirk on his face, thinking he had won. But little did he know, he had already lost, and I was just getting started. It wasn't long before the day arrived when I finally decided to take action. The time had come. I had scheduled a meeting with Logan to discuss his managerial appointment, and he walked in that morning, all smiles and confidence, still under the impression that he was going to be confirmed as the district manager. His overconfidence was almost laughable. I wasn't at the office of the regional manager, so he still thinks I'm a mere coordinator like before, relaying the message of the higher-ups. I informed the staffs around me to cooperate. As he sat across from me, his eyes gleaming with expectation, I couldn't help but smile inwardly. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. I sat back in my chair, my hands folded neatly in front of me, keeping my composure. He was so sure of himself, and it was almost too easy to let him believe it. "So, Amelia," he said, leaning back in his chair with his usual cocky smile, "I assume today's the day we make it official, right? I'm sorry you have to be the one to give me the honor. I'll be the district manager, and the rest will be history." I couldn't help but suppress a smirk. His arrogance was almost unbearable. But this was my moment, my time to shine. I leaned forward slightly, looking him dead in the eyes. "Actually, Logan," I began, my voice steady, "there's something I need to tell you. It's about your appointment." His expression faltered for the first time. The confidence in his eyes wavered just a bit, but he quickly recovered, trying to act like he was still in control. "Yeah, of course," he said. "I knew this would be easy. So, what's the next step?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I slid a piece of paper across the desk toward him. He glanced down at it, his eyes scanning the document, and then his face went pale. There, right in front of him, was the real decision. I was the one who held the power to approve or deny this job that made his ego skyrocket, and his fake credentials had been discovered. His eyes shot up to mine, and for a brief moment, I saw the panic flash across his face. But it didn't last long. He quickly tried to mask it with a forced smile, but I could tell he knew the game was over. "Amelia, he started, but I held up a hand to stop him. "Logan," I said, my voice cold and sharp, "you thought you could manipulate your way into this position. You thought you could discard me without consequences. Well, you were wrong." I stood up from my chair and walked around to the side of the desk, leaning over to get closer to him. His confidence had evaporated, and now, all that was left was a man who had underestimated me. "You're not getting the position," I said, my voice steady and resolute, "and I'm making sure your mistakes cost you everything." As Logan sat there speechless, his eyes darting between the document and my unwavering expression, I could feel the power shift. But this wasn't just about his job. This was about everything he had taken for granted. The look on his face said it all. He had no idea what was coming next, and I was ready to watch it all unfold. This, he trailed off, unable to form a coherent thought. This isn't right. There must be some mistake. Don't try to get back at me because I dump you. I watched him, my heart completely unaffected by his panic and choice of words, even though one part of me felt like landing him a dirty slap. No mistake, Logan, I said, my voice colder than I had ever allowed it to be. It's all here. The lies, the fake credentials, the insider help you received to bypass the hiring process. You thought you could cheat your way into a heat position you weren't qualified for. Well, the truth is, you've been caught. The words hung in the air, thick with the weight of reality. Logan's mouth opened, but nothing came out. He looked at the paper in front of him again, and I could see his mind racing. He was trying to piece together how this had happened. How had I found out? How was this even possible? You're not getting the position, Logan, I continued, my voice sharp and final. In fact, not only are you not getting it, but you're also fired from the companies in this district. Your appointment grant is canceled, and I've made sure your involvement with this company ends today. The shock on his face was almost satisfying. I could see him struggling to understand. This wasn't the outcome he had expected. In his mind, he was the one who had power, who had control. But now he was on the receiving end of that power, and he couldn't handle it. You can't do this, he stammered, his voice rising slightly. I've worked so hard. You can't just take this from me by reporting me. It was funny for him to think the power I have now is to report him. He still thinks I'm the coordinator, so I decided to play along. You didn't earn it, Logan. You manipulated your way into this position, and now you're going to face the consequences. You think this is about some job? No, this is about the way you treated me. The way you thought you could just toss me aside when I had always been there for you. Logan's eyes flashed with anger. This is ridiculous, he yelled, slamming his fist on the desk. I don't need to take this from you. But I was already beyond his petty threats. I stood up, walked around my desk, and leaned in close to him. This is the consequence for everything you did to me, Logan, for using me, for thinking you could walk away without paying the price. Well, here it is. You've been outplayed, and you'll never see this coming. I paused, letting the weight of the words sink in, watching as Logan's face twisted with disbelief and fury. But I wasn't done. I had a plan with a staff member to approach Logan and convince him that he will help him to clear whatever evidence I have against him, and also testify against me that I was just bitter. This staff member was an upcoming actor, and he played his role so well. He presented his motive as not liking me, so he wanted to help Logan, and he fell for it. How desperate. I could feel the sense of satisfaction bubbling up inside me, but I wasn't going to let it show. Not yet. You're done here, Logan. And don't even think about trying to fight this. You'll never get another chance like this again. Enjoy the consequences of your actions. As I turned away from him, his angry mutterings growing faint in the background, I couldn't help but feel a sense of justice finally being served. But this was only the beginning. He had bit the bait I set for him, which would set up for his disgrace that would be broadcasted. I had delivered the first blow. But now it was time to sit back and watch as his world truly crumbled while he thought he still had a chance. The grand unveiling day had finally arrived. The day Logan had been anticipating, the day he believed would seal his success after my actor staff member had deceived him about erasing all his wrongdoing and submitting his name to make it to the selected managers. The atmosphere in the ballroom was electric, buzzing with energy, excitement, and anticipation. The district managers for the new company were to be introduced, each one stepping up with pride, ready to announce their plans for the future. But for Logan, this was the day his world would crumble, a complete reversal of everything he had imagined. I stood at the back of the room, watching as the crowd gathered, feeling the pulse of the moment. It was surreal. For so long, I had lived in the shadows of other people's expectations. But now, everything was different. I was no longer the woman who was cast aside and forgotten. I was the one who held all the cards. The crowd's energy felt intoxicating, but I didn't let it get to me. This wasn't about the spectacle. This wasn't about showing off. It was about something deeper, something that had been building up for years. It was about taking my place. It was about power. As I stood there, the anticipation building within me, the ceremony began, and one by one, district managers were called up. Their names were announced, their accomplishments celebrated, and the crowd applauded, clapping politely. But I wasn't here for them. I wasn't even here for the applause. I saw him. Logan. His confident strut was gone now as he didn't hear his name being called, his eyes scanning the room as if to locate the staff that conned him. The arrogance he had worn like armor for so long had shattered. He stood with the others, his posture now rigid, eyes darting nervously. And there, standing in front of me, was the look I had been waiting for, the moment when he realized the extent of his mistake. I could see the tension in his body, the nerves he was trying so hard to hide. Today wasn't his day. Today, it was mine. Finally, it was my turn. Now we have a special announcement, the host said, and all eyes turned to me. I could feel the weight of their stares. I could feel Logan's eyes burning into me. He had no idea what was about to hit him. The host continued, "Please welcome our new regional manager for the entire company, Amelia, the woman who has redefined success, hard work, and dedication. She's the one who has proven that integrity and perseverance always win." A wave of applause erupted as I walked confidently toward the podium, my head held high. I couldn't help the small smile that tugged at my lips. This moment was mine. Every step, every sacrifice, every ounce of pain and humiliation from the past had led me here. Logan was standing in the crowd, and as I reached the podium, I saw him go completely still. The color drained from his face. He knew. He realized exactly what was happening. The realization hit him hard. He thought this day was his when he first got that shortlisting mail, making the arrogant decision to dump me. But he was wrong, and now he sees it clearly. I looked out at the crowd, the applause still echoing in my ears, and then I spoke. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady, calm, and poised. "I've worked tirelessly to get here, but it's not just about what I've done. It's about proving that when you're underestimated, when you're overlooked, you can rise higher than anyone ever expected. Today isn't just about me. It's about every woman who's been told she's not enough, every person who's been told to settle. You have the power to take control of your own destiny." The applause grew louder, but I could hear Logan's breath hitch in the silence that followed. His eyes were wide, still not fully understanding what was happening. He was too late. I turned to him, my gaze locking with his. "As for Logan," I continued, my voice smooth, my tone never wavering, "it's my honor to inform you officially that your appointment has been rescinded. You will no longer be serving as district manager. We've reviewed your credentials, and I'm afraid you failed to meet the standards required for the position, and you will have to face the law for altering some documents in your application." His face drained of color as my words sunk in. The crowd fell silent, shocked by the discovery. I could see his jaw clench, his fists ball up at his sides as police officers matched his stand. But I didn't care. He didn't deserve my sympathy. "I'm sorry, Logan," I said, my eyes still fixed on him. "But this is your consequence for everything you did to me, for everything you thought you could get away with." Logan stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. But I didn't give him a chance to speak. I turned away and addressed the room once more, my voice filled with the quiet confidence that had built within me over the years. After my speech, the room was still, the weight of the moment hanging in the air. I could see Logan's world falling apart before my eyes, but I was beyond being moved by it. This was justice. This was the moment he finally understood what it meant to underestimate me. As the ceremony continued, Logan stood motionless, his pride shattered, his career slipping through his fingers. His arrogance had blinded him for so long, and now all of it was coming back to haunt him. I had watched him tear me down, throw me aside, and use me when it suited him. But today, I was the one in control. But it wasn't just about him. It was about me, my hard work, and my triumph. I had proved that I was more than what they saw me as, a mere afterthought, a woman to be discarded. Now I was a force to be reckoned with, and I wasn't done yet. As I looked back at Logan, his eyes filled with rage and disbelief, I couldn't help but smile to myself. This was just the beginning. I had gotten my revenge, but now I had something even bigger to work toward. The world was mine, and I was no longer held back by anyone's expectations or limitations. I glanced over at my sister, Juliana, who stood awkwardly in the crowd. She had watched everything unfold with wide eyes, her expression shifting from confusion to resentment. She had no idea what she had done, but it was clear now that everything she had worked for was falling apart because she's definitely losing her job after review. For the first time in a long time, I felt free, completely free, and I would make sure that freedom lasted. As I walked out of the ceremony, the weight of everything I had done in my life, everything I had overcome, felt lighter. I no longer needed the approval of anyone, especially not my family. I had done this on my own through my hard work, and now I had the power to shape my future. But I couldn't help but think back to Logan, to my sister, to everything I had been through. They had made me feel small, insignificant. But now, I was the one in control, and they would have to live with the consequences of their actions. If you've enjoyed watching this journey of justice unfold, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. What would you do if you were in Amelia's shoes? Would you have given them a second chance? Let's hear your thoughts, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what's next.